Welcome to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast, where we empower women to own their power, create influence and impact, and live life unapologetically AF. It's time to leverage your expertise, resources, and relationships to build your business, brand, and badassery. So just click subscribe and let's get it. I'm your host, Kelly Charles Collins. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast. I'm so excited today because my friend Dionnie Wynter Pfunde is here. Miss Attorney Dionnie Wynter Pfunde. Now listen, okay, I asked all of my guests to give me a bio. So Dionnie sent me this really dry bio and I told her, I'm not reading that. So let me tell you who Dionnie Wynter Pfunde is. She is an amazing international immigration law attorney. Not only does she run her own practice, where she has, I think right now, about 9 employees under her watch, but she's also the creator and founder of the Immigration Law Academy, where she teaches other immigration lawyers how to 10x their immigration practice. And one of the things that you'll hear us talking about today with Dionnie is this whole concept of working from anywhere. And she has really perfected that. So Dionnie, and we're going to talk about her being what we call the governor of Clubhouse. So all kinds of stuff to talk about with Dionnie today. So welcome, Dionnie. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leverage podcast.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much for having me. You know what? I thought to myself, how am I going to prepare for a discussion with Kelly? And I said, you know what? We're just going to chat. We're just going to chat. So I'm looking forward to having a wonderful, wonderful chat today. Thank you, Ladies Who Leverage Boss, for inviting me to your podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. So I want to start, Dionnie. So we talk about you being an immigration law attorney and an international immigration law attorney. So tell us a little bit about your practice. And when I say international, like what does that really mean?
Okay. So a lot of people, when they think of U.S. immigration, they think of immigration happening within the United States. What most attorneys do not think of is what's going on outside the United States. There is over 100 consular posts around the world where people have to be processed to come into the United States. And I think very early on in my practice, I knew I was going to tap into that market. When you go to any Caribbean island or you go overseas, very rarely do you see individuals branding themselves as immigration lawyers. You will see, Kelly, the little agencies that will help you fill out an application. But as far as giving you a 360 full legal representation, that is not happening overseas. And so that's what I've done with Wynter Law Practice, is kind of tapped into that market that is not yet in the United States, but they're coming in.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love about you when I listen to you speak about immigration is that you really are in love with this area of law, that you read everything, that you just really immerse yourself in it so that you're very conversant in immigration law, right? So it's not just, oh, I have this practice. And so I say that you're an international immigration lawyer. You have a practice in Jamaica, right?
I do.
And tell us a little bit about that.
So I have Wynter Law Practice, which most people think of 80% of our business in Jamaica is immigration. The other 20%, I represent individuals who go to Jamaica from the United States and get in some kind of trouble, or not only trouble, but maybe they've had a car accident. We have clients where they're staying at a resort and they might have an altercation. What happens? Do they just get back on their flight and come back to the United States? No. So I help facilitate some of that litigation.
Yeah. And so Jamaica, right? You're from Jamaica. And I want to talk to you about that because I'm Jamaican too. But we have different upbringings as far as being Jamaican. And I want to talk to you about that in a little bit. When we're talking about the Immigration Law Academy, so I said that you help all of these attorneys. Where did this idea come from? And what is it that you actually do for other attorneys? Because as a former attorney, I know sometimes we don't want other people telling us what to do with our business. So, what is it that you're doing with these lawyers, and how have you gotten them to say, yes, Dionnie, help me?
Oh God. So I think what most people don't realize is how many years I spent in academia. I was a director of a really large and successful law school here in Florida. And so my training have always been working with young up and coming attorneys. What I have done is just kind of niche down and say, who are the attorneys that I really want to work with? And then why do I want to work with them? If we think about the practice of immigration law, Kelly, which you alluded, it's my passion. Because when I think about the practice, I'm thinking about who are we helping? And if you think about immigration lawyers, they get a bad rap, right? They're seen as unprepared for court, unprepared for hearings. The lawyer mess up the paperwork. That's the trend that you get around the practice of immigration law, right? Because people just think it's as easy. Let me just fill out some paperwork and drop it in the mail. That is not immigration law. That's not it, because you're affecting lives. So it came to me that I was always, over the years, young attorneys are calling me, hey, Dionnie, I have a question about this. Dionnie, I have a court case. I don't go to court for immigration. And so I looked in the marketplace and I saw the need. I said, where most people, when they go to conferences, they're telling them how to be good lawyers, not how to practice, how to build a business, how to make immigration law a successful business, right? And so when I looked in the marketplace, I saw that need, and I make a joke. I said, you know what? You're not going to keep picking my brain for free. Let's organize this and let's offer this as a solution to immigration lawyers. And we have the Immigration Law Academy.
And I love it. And y'all, she says it like this, but it's one of these things that you put a bug in Dionnie's ear, and whatever you tell her or whatever idea, by the next day she comes up with it. So then she's sitting here as if the Immigration Law Academy was something that she's like, really thought about. No, this came to her and she executed on it, which I love. And it's interesting because one of the things when I was practicing and people would talk to me about like owning my own firm, and I was like, no, because I just want to practice law. And I didn't want to run a business and practice law, because to me that was just two jobs, right? And I didn't want to have two jobs. So I'm glad that you're focused, especially with younger lawyers, and younger meaning years of practice, not necessarily age, on the business of practicing law, because that is where the money is, right? It's not in the day-to-day, trial prep, transactional things. It's not there where the money is. And so you talk about this passion that you have for immigration law. Where does that come from, Dionnie?
Wow, my mom. I mean, it's that simple. My mom. So if anybody's followed Dionnie around, you'll hear me give credit to my mother over and over again. I call her the shero of my story. My dad is instrumental, but I give it to my mom, because if you think about my mother's story, Kelly, here's this woman, no high school education, right? No business sense, no understanding about laws, but she knew back in 1980 something, she was going to get on a bus going to Kingston to the consulate we talked about and apply for a visa, a visitor's visa. And it was her first time. And she filled out the paperwork, I imagine, right? And she got a visitor's visa to the United States. And I think back then it was clear to her, she wasn't doing it for herself. She was in her mid 40s when she came to the United States for the first time. So I knew, and just by talking to her over the years, she did it for her 7 children. It had nothing to do with her. And I think it was such an unselfish act on her part to come to this new country, know nothing about laws. She knows how to read and write, but limited capacity. And she was able to do so much for us over the years that, I just knew, I was going to do something for immigrants. I didn't know what it was at the time, but I attribute everything I've done, the direction of my life, all of that to the shero of my story, my moomsie.
Yeah, I know you call her Mumsy. I love it. And I love all the tributes that you do to her and the stories. And so I really wanted you to share that with people because sometimes we get into spaces maybe in our life that we're doing something and we don't really know why we end up there, but it's so clear why you are in this space. And so I want to go back a little further because you talk about your mom coming to the United States. You came to the United States as an adult. You actually grew up in Jamaica. So tell us about growing up in Jamaica and what brought you to the United States.
So my mom left Jamaica when I was 13. So, it's a typical trip. You get dressed up, you go in the little van. My mom
Yeah.
sat in the front. We didn't want her clothes to get crushed. She's coming to foreign, she's coming to America. So, she had the suit made. It was a blue blazer, which explains my blue. My mom wore a blue blazer, a blue skirt, and a red blouse. And I remember it distinctively, Kelly. I was 13, but I knew something was happening. Like my world was changing. My mom kept telling us she's coming back in 6 months, which is, I think, what every parent
Yep.
tells their children. But soon
Yeah.
come back. I'll soon be back. And so we got dressed. It was a Sunday afternoon. It was April 2nd of 1984, I think. I keep getting the year mixed up, but I know it was April 2nd. And we drove into the city. I was in the back of the pickup truck, mommy sitting in the front. And I knew clear as day, my world was changing, right? So I'm 13 years old. So we go back in the minivan, drive home, and it's now dad, my sister, my brother, all the family members that journeyed with us. And, we sat down and it felt like somebody had died.
Mm.
It felt like there was a death because the woman who held our world together, my mom is a strong, phenomenal woman, and she was gone. What is Monday morning going to look like? And Monday morning meant you get up, you get dressed, and you go to school like nothing happened, right? Keep it moving, and you still get your good grades, keep your head up, your mom will be back. And so mom left when I was 13. The next time I saw my mother, I was 19 years old,
Oh,
and I
wow.
now had, my daughter was almost 4 years old. So the next time I saw my mother, I was a mother, right? Because over the course of the years, mom ended up staying in the United States, and she was able to sort herself out. But when she came back, I now had my Danielle because I had gotten pregnant as a teenager.
So I want to talk to you about getting pregnant as a teenager, but I want to go back to what you're saying about your mom being gone. What was that like? And how has that impacted you growing up to not have your mom for those kind of formative years as a young woman?
So I think I was traumatized. And I think that's where I got attached to my dad because he became mommy and daddy, right? And I still maintain a very tight relationship with my dad. I was traumatized without my mom. So all the things that happen to a young woman, all the changes we go through, I didn't have a mother there. What I did have though was a tight community, whether it was a church, whether it was in that little community where women, they played role in the lives of all these barrel children, right? So they were very active. The church was active. Family members played roles. Like I remember my grandmother would come maybe twice a month to make sure we washed her clothes, make sure the girly things were done, right? The house was clean, right? Because we're living in a house with my brother, these young women, my sister was only a year older than I was. And so I think I was traumatized. And the impact it had on me, Kelly, is that I didn't leave my children anywhere. I wouldn't leave them, right? When it came time for me to come to the United States, I remember my mom saying to me, leave Danielle and you come. And because of that trauma I had at 13, I was like, heck no, because my mom was like, leave Danielle, you come, you get a job, so you can work and take her. And I was like traumatized. I'm like, nope, not leaving her. When it came time for me to move away from New York to go to Michigan to law school, my mom gave me the same offer. Leave the kids here with me and you go. Nope,
Yeah.
not leaving. Because I was just so traumatized about leaving my children anywhere. Even
Yeah.
now, I still like, where are you? What are you doing? I still play. So how has that impacted me? I think it helped me to become, and I'm not taking anything away from my mother because she made the best choice,
Right.
that she could. But it helped me become a more present mother,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think, that story is the story of a lot of people in the Caribbean, right? That is, our families, either one parent or the other, leaving to go live somewhere to make a better life, to make the way for us to come. And so while mom is gone, you're there with dad, sister, and brother, and 15 years old, you get pregnant.
15 years old, I get.
Right. So talk about that, Dionnie, in the scheme of what's
Oh,
happening in your life now. So now you're pregnant. I can't imagine dad was very happy about that situation, or mom for that matter, even though she was away. Talk to us about being a 15-year-old mom.
ashamed,
Mm,
very ashamed. It's a small community. Um, and the thing, Kelly, is I was supposed to be the star of my family, right? I could recite Bible verses back and front. I could do the multiplication table like nobody's business. They said I could read a book without looking down at the book. I cheated. I would memorize stuff, and and then when I'm reading, because my memory, right?
right.
Like I'm reading, I don't have to look down. That's because I would spend the day before memorizing. They ask you to read the Bible scripture. They
Right.
said, oh, she could read it without looking down. No, no, no. I would spend the whole day, the day before, making sure I was prepared, making sure I was ready, and that has followed me through my life. But 15-year-old Dionnie, there's a word for it in today's world. It's called depression.
Mm,
Back then we call it feel bad. I
yeah.
felt bad, right? Scared. And I'm not even going to talk about the fact that how the guy was treated, right? He was glorified because he was glorified for, oh, you got somebody pregnant. That's a big deal. Oh my God,
Right.
high five. Whereas a woman, you were put to shame because you have to walk and hold your head down and, you know, you're so ashamed. So for months and months, I remember not leaving my house at all, especially when it started like this in the Caribbean showing,
Yeah.
I wouldn't leave my house. I had the tremendous love and support from my sisters and my dad. I remember my dad saying to me, don't ask anybody for anything. Keep your head up. Very, very inspirational. But I was traumatized. First of all, what am I going to do with a baby? I'm 15. Like, I don't know how to hold a baby. I don't know how to do anything with a baby. Right. And so I think traumatized,
Yeah.
scared. Like, I wish I could talk to her now and be like, girl, you have no idea what's ahead of you, but keep going. But
Yeah.
I always kept my wits about me by, I treated myself through reading and dreaming because I never stopped dreaming, never stopped reading. And my mom, I remember calling my aunt to come and tell my dad for me because I was not going to tell him I was pregnant.
You sound like me. When I
Listen,
got pregnant, I called my sister. I was like, yeah, by the way. And I was 20. I was like, yeah, I need you to tell mom and dad because I'm not doing it.
like, I'm not doing it. So I called my aunt and she told my dad. And I remember my dad just looked like his world had just deflated
Hmm.
because, out of all the family, I was the one that was going to finish high school. I was going to go to college. I was going to make something of myself. And I think
Yeah.
for my dad, me getting pregnant meant the end to that.
Hmm. Um, did you ever think of not going forward with having your baby?
Immediately I asked the doctor and I'm so glad you bring that up because I often say in my post, I never judge a woman who makes any, because I say I don't want young women to look at me as this perfect beacon because I carried these two children. The
Hmm.
first thing I asked Dr. McCoy, and I remember saying, and my daughter, I had that conversation with Danielle. I said, how do I get rid of it? I didn't give it a gender. I remember when we did the test and without even leaving the office, Kelly, I said, how do I get rid of it?
Yeah.
So did I think about it? I think about it. I talked about it. I made the appointment. I think I was just too scared. I was
Yeah.
just so scared. It was not, Kelly, this conscious decision of I am anti-abortion, I'm having a child. No, It was scared as crap because young women were doing abortion. You know how Jamaica is with the
Yeah.
abortions. I've even said, I wonder if I was living at the time in the United States, having the access that women have, that is my decision. I don't know,
Yeah.
right? These are conversations I've had with my Danielle was, I'm 15. You best believe I thought about it, Kelly.
Yeah. Yeah. And so many women do. And, we know that this is a very divisive topic in our country. But, I just wanted, I want us to, when we're having these conversations on Ladies Who Leverage podcast, to really dig into the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So often we see women like you, women like me who are successful, and people think, see you, and they don't understand what happened, what lies beneath, what are the stories, behind that. So you have Danielle at 15.
Mm-hmm.
When do you come to the United States?
At 21.
Okay, so
I'm
between 15 and 21, what are you doing in Jamaica at that
so
after you have her?
trying to find an American husband, my goal was to try to find an Italian husband. Like I wanted to go to Italy. Um, so I started working in the tourist sector. So I've always, Kelly, been able to land flat on my feet, right? So I give birth to Danielle and I said, you know what? Danielle was born, I think 2 weeks before my 16th birthday. She was born February 8th. I turned 16 March 3rd. So right then. So I just went to Ocho Rios and started walking from place to place, asking if they were hiring anybody. I was successful in passing a lot of my subjects in high school.
Yeah.
So I had those to brag with, to say, I have, a 2 in this, I have a 1 in this, please hire me. And that's how you get hired in Jamaica at the time. And I remember running into a friend, Sharon Spence, and she said, they're opening up a new restaurant if you want to be a waitress. And I'm like, no.
Like,
are they looking for a manager? Mind you, Kelly, I'm all of 16, 17. I was like, are they looking for a manager? And it's Hong Kong International Restaurant. They were coming from China to open this restaurant, and they hired me as front desk. Because I was like, I always wanted to be, right? And so I worked that. Then I moved over to Couples Resort, became a wedding coordinator. And I jokingly tell people I've attended more weddings than anybody I ever know. Because
I didn't know that you did that.
I was
Did you
a
guys
wedding.
used to own a wedding and event planning business?
Exactly. When you said that, I was like, oh, Kelly, maybe there's something there for the two of us. I was a wedding coordinator at Couples Resort in St. Mary. And I did that for many years. In fact, I left that job and then that's when I came to the US.
Yeah.
So I worked during that time, hired in Jamaica. They call somebody to take care of a baby. Here they call it a nanny.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm like, I just, so I did work the whole time and, really worked on me mentally, because my Danielle's father had walked away from our lives. It was just me and Danielle. So I worked on me, worked on Danielle, worked on becoming a good mom, whatever that looks like, until I came.
Yeah. And then when you came to the US, how did you get from walking around in Ocho Rios trying to find a job, right, at 16 to being this amazing lawyer that you are today?
Oh gosh. Leaning into people, leaning into family, leaning into my cousin. I remember I told my mom I wanted to do something. They tell a lawyer, doctor, Indian chief. I didn't believe I could be a lawyer. I believe I could be a lawyer, but I didn't believe I could be a lawyer. But I knew I wanted to be one of those things that they planted in our heads. So mom said, why don't you go to paralegal, like go learn to type so you can be in a doctor's office, being in a lawyer's office. And she took me to meet Mark Fish. Mark Fish was the lawyer who did our paperwork. And she took me to his office on Broadway in Manhattan. Girl, all I saw was dollar signs. Took the elevator up. We took this elevator up, and my mom was so comfortable in Mark's office. Mr. Fish, we called him, because he wanted to meet me because he'd done our paperwork. So he just wanted, and mommy took me into this building, Kelly, and I was like, boom. I didn't know what it meant, but I wanted something like that. Like it meant so much to me. And so I'm on the train. We're going to a little school in Manhattan where I was going to learn how to type. And I ran into one of my cousins who had lived in the United States way, way, way before us. We call her Aunt Sonia because she's an older cousin. And she said, no, you don't need to go to paralegal school. You're smart. I know you're smart. I know you're smart. I know you're smart. You can do better. You don't need to go to paralegal school. Let me call June, which is my other big cousin who was in academia. And she said, you're going to Bronx community. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And you're not going to pay any money because it's City University of New York. And she literally put me in her car and took me there. And I just so I always say leaning into people has always been like my secret sauce, and always being kind to people who lean into me, right? I don't need a lot of friends. I don't need a lot of people, but I need good people around me, right? So that's how that started. And the train has just been going full speed ahead. And I'm never afraid of anything.
Yeah, you're not. You're not. And that's one of the things that I love, love, love about you. And, talking about having people around you, sometimes we think that we have to have a big crowd. But, in Jamaica, they said friend and company would keep you in trouble. Right? So,
I love your patois, Kelly.
I do it sometimes. So, I've never had a large group of people around me, but always a curated group of people. And I think that's such an important lesson for us to learn as women as we go through life, that it's not the quantity of the people around you, but the quality of the people around you. And so one of the things that, you and I met in 2018. We met briefly. I actually came to the law school where you were a director. And then we didn't connect again until 2020. And I have watched you just really blossom into this person. Like you said, as a young person, you've always had this in you. But you have really, Dionnie, just like as they say in Jamaica, big up your chest, right? You have really just big up your chest over this past year. What was it? What has happened to you in this year that has caused you to just really, it's almost like no limits? As you talk about, this whole concept of working from anywhere, but it's really expanded in your mind to not just working anywhere, but just doing anything. What is that, Dionnie? What is that within you?
So a part of it, a big part of it is joining, and this is not a plug for Ladies Who Leverage. It's not, right? But it is. I think, no, for real, Kelly. I remember last March when you started Ladies Who Leverage, and I started meeting all the women. I started listening to you talk, and I think what LWL did for me was clarity. Because in my head, there's a lot of things floating in our heads that we're going to do, that we want to do, that we've started, that, because I've always been onto something. I was the girl who packed up everything and moved to Jamaica for 6 months to go to law school, right? I'm always gully like that. But I think for me, the last 12 months, if I were to look back and say, okay, what was that pivoting part? Like, for example, take this real simple thing, Kelly. You only know what you know. Mm-hmm. Success in my practice meant $10,000-$15,000 a month. I'm good. I pay the mortgage. I'm living good. I can work for many, I could go to Jamaica. And then I remember even September of last year when we said, let's go for $100. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Is that a thing? So you can only know what, and I think I had gotten Dionnie to the best place I could have gotten Dionnie, right? Like I had done the best I could. I had gotten Dionnie through law school. I had gotten Dionnie into motherhood. I had gotten Dionnie to where I could have taken Dionnie. And I think that would have been it. And I think what LWL taught me through you and the other phenomenal women in the group, and I don't want to use names because I'm going to leave people out. Right. Everybody have been so instrumental. And that's why I say Kelly Charles Collins, because you're LWL. Mm-hmm. And I wish I was on another podcast and you weren't interviewing me, because I'm not. I'll say this on another podcast. This all the time. Well, it is. I think it was the clarity. Like, I think those monthly sessions, I mean, I have books and books and books and notes, Kelly. Even now we're talking, mm-hmm. I'm writing little notes, right? So I think for me, it was a clarity gained just by surrounding myself with all these women, and the world was on pause. So we had time. I think it was perfect timing on your part. In fact, I think it was genius. because we had time. It's almost like the world slowed down, which allowed me to start thinking.
Yeah.
It allowed me to come back to the group and say, I'm doing this. And you'd be like, no, you're not. Or I'm doing this. And you say, yes, you are. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I think for me, the last 12 months, if I could draw a straight line into what happened, it would have been joining LWL, and not only just joining, but being present.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think,
And, you know, so many of us, right? So many of us join things and don't engage and don't understand the power of association. And, you know, just being in the room when people are speaking, because they may not be speaking to you, but there's something that they may be saying that will help you, right? And it may not help you today, but like you said, you and you take lots of notes. But not only do you take notes, you implement,
I agree.
right? And I think that has been the key to your success, especially in the last year. And it's funny because I was looking at some footage of our summits, and and you just happened to come up on the screen, and listening to you introduce yourself at that time was kind of in the beginning to what I see and hear now is a total transformation. And when we talk about the power of association, at the beginning, I talked about, you know, that we lovingly call you the governor of Clubhouse, right? So Clubhouse is, you know, the new big thing in terms of social media, and it's an audio app for those people who aren't familiar with Clubhouse. It's an audio app for iPhones right now, people who have iPhones right now. And it's where people have amazing conversations about any number of topics. And I remember getting on Clubhouse and then coming into Ladies Who Leverage and saying, listen, you all need to get on Clubhouse. Like, I don't care how you get on there, you need to get on Clubhouse. And you got on Clubhouse, and you have just like decimated everybody on Clubhouse, right? In terms of using it in a vehicle to leverage your brand. And so I want you to, why when you got into Clubhouse, or how did you see that that was really a vehicle that you could use and so quickly to develop your brand and really expand your business?
All right. So you got me into Clubhouse. You sent me the invite. Again, my North Star, Kelly Charles Collins. So when you came back and say get on Clubhouse, it dawned on me that we've all said, because, you know, I was doing well on social media. I had a good LinkedIn, I'm doing YouTube, I'm doing other things, social media. And we've all said, I wish we were there when Facebook started. Oh, if we did better when Facebook
Right.
started. I wish I was there when Instagram started. Oh, I wish me when better when. So I said to myself, wait a minute. I've always wished and wanted to have taken hold of YouTube back in 2010, 2011. And my practice for a very long time was a secret because I'm working in corporate America.
Right.
So my little practice, I had to be nimble about it, like whispering, hey, I do immigration law, whispering, I do immigration law. I no longer had to whisper. And when you gave me the invite, first of all, Kelly, you were already, and I don't think you realized that you were playing this instrumental part in my life. I don't think you realize. I mean, I'm looking up to you. I'm respecting you. I'm following you. You know, you said jump. I'm like, okay, Kelly, I've jumped 10 times now. What? So already, so it was perfect timing because you were kind of my little roadmap, my little guide. And you said, get into Clubhouse. I'm like, all right, I'm getting into Clubhouse. So when I got into Clubhouse, at first, I was like everybody else, kind of like, okay, what am I bringing to Clubhouse? Right. And so because of that, and my husband will tell you, I spent hours a day on Clubhouse. I was in every room and I was listening and watching and listening and watching and learning. And because it's in the early days, I think not even 1 million people were on Clubhouse when we got on.
Right.
Right. And so I say, okay, what am I going to bring to Clubhouse? Right. Who am I going to bring? And I knew, for one, I didn't want the same people that were following me off of Clubhouse to be following me on Clubhouse, right? Because if you're not spending money with me over there, why are you going spending money?
Right.
So I knew I had to target what I was going to bring. At the time, the academy was already, the seed was planted for that. I had recorded a course. So my goal was to use the Clubhouse to sell courses out of the academy. I tried that and I realized it was a little bit of a hard sell because
Okay.
everybody on Clubhouse was selling a course. Everybody was, I was like,
Right.
wrong thing. So I pivoted and started doing some B2B, business to business with attorneys. And that's when I said, you know what, let me use Clubhouse to highlight the academy, to highlight the 6-week program that, I created like that. Yeah.
Right.
And so that's how I leveraged it. And then I decided if I'm going to do that, I'm going to go all in. Like everybody on Clubhouse is going to know about me. I'm not going to just be
And
like,
they do. They do. They follow you around Clubhouse. They come in, they come into a room, they're like, I'm here because I saw that Dionnie was in here. So thus the governor of Clubhouse. But go ahead.
I worked. I fell asleep in rooms. I went to the large rooms, went to the small rooms, went to the room with one person so I could introduce myself, network, make meaningful connections. So I'm not just popping in a room and raising my hand and leave. No, if you have a room, I'm coming in to support you. And that means 20 or 30 minutes, I might sit in your room. It might be nonsense, but I'm there to support your nonsense, just like I'm asking you to support my nonsense, right?
Yeah.
And so I treated Clubhouse not as a new universe, but already as a universe that we've all lived in, where we support each other, where we hold conversations. And I knew I was going to make it consistent, right?
Yes.
Consistent. That's when I came up with the Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And no matter what's going on, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm in Clubhouse at 11.
Yeah.
That's it.
One of the things that I've learned that has been affirmed from Clubhouse for me is the power of association, right? And being in rooms where people are calling each other's names, if for no other reason but to lend credibility to that person.
Mhm.
And, it is a thing about, we talk about ladies who leverage and living life unapologetically AF and empowering women, to build their business, their brand, and their badassery. That's part of it. That is part of, being, again, in these curated circles of people who, no matter where you are and what you're doing, that they will always call your name. Right. And I think that has been the lesson for me in Clubhouse. I don't leverage it as well as you do. I need to. But I watch you and I am so inspired by you. And one last thing I want to talk about, because you kind of slipped this in there that we didn't talk about. And that is the whole thing about working a full-time job and having your law practice. And there's so many women I know who will be listening who have that same thing where their passion is not the thing that's paying their bills, but they really want to go out and do that. So, Dionnie, how did you navigate that, doing those two things? And what was the thing that eventually had you leave corporate and come into your own in this space of being this fantabulous immigration lawyer?
So I didn't leave corporate. Corporate fired me.
Well, hey, same
And
thing here.
I sent them a fruit basket after they fired me because I think it was the best thing. I had overstayed my welcome in
Hmm.
corporate America. I just knew I did. But as far as how did I break out of working the full-time job? So for a very long time, Kelly, I, like many people, associate ourselves with the jobs. We become the jobs. I remember I became Coolie, and as I wear the sweatshirt, I became Coolie. Like I wasn't Dionnie. I was Dionnie from Cooley or Dionnie at Cooley. I was never Dionnie. And so for me, and I've always loved investing in me, I hired a branding coach very early on before I even left corporate America. This was back in 16. I don't know if people were hiring branding coaches back then, but I did hire a branding coach. And I said, I want to separate me from any job I've ever had, from any corporation I've ever had. And I worked with her over time to develop my brand, talk about, what's my unique value proposition and who is coming to the table. And I literally got on a plane, flew to Rhode Island and did a whole day session with this woman, Dr. Hume Johnson, who's still my branding coach. And, separating myself from my employer. I am not my employer, right? My husband would tell you it's not your father's business. Therefore, I'm not inheriting it. Why am I cloaking myself under their brand?
Yeah.
And I remember Kelly being afraid when I left the Cooley, like for people just talking to me because they knew I had access to a job. Like, okay, I want a job as an adjunct faculty. Let me reach out. I was very scared of losing that. And I realized the true people stayed. The true people were sending me business. Oh my God, let me send you some business. The true people were calling me up for opportunities. So I think for me, it's finding out your brand and not, even if you cannot talk about your business, you can talk about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. It's, like you, the job left me. I didn't leave the job. I didn't leave the job, but like you said, it was the best thing that ever happened. And so many women want to make that leap. So whether they get pushed out, right, like we did, or they decide to take the leap, what is one piece of advice that you would give to women who are in that kind of transition period?
Wow. First of all, don't quit your job. Use that money to build the business of your dreams. So for me, I knew what I wanted my law firm to be like. And working at an establishment allowed me to build the law firm that I wanted, the type of service that I would offer, because I had my corporate money. So I was able to really hone in on what do I want Winter Law Practice to look like. And that's where work from anywhere comes in, because I literally had to work from anywhere, like on my lunch break in the parking lot, taking a client's call, right? Or talking to staff had one office over in Tampa. I'm working in Riverview. So I really had to master the work from anywhere bit very early on. I think come up with a plan. Say you're staying on your corporate job for the next 6 months, come up with a plan and use that money to kind of help build your business. So when you leave, you have a lot of the stuff in place, whether it's software, hardware, marketing, whatever you need, use that money. And especially if you have time, if you're not against the clock, if they're not trying to get rid of you, I would say use the money to build the business that you want.
Yeah.
That's what I would recommend.
Yeah. And you talk about working from anywhere, and you really do work from anywhere, whether it's I'm always like, where are you now? What are you doing? But like you said, as long as you have a laptop and Wi Fi, you've built your business so that you can work from anywhere. So I want to say to you, Dionnie, that I am so proud of you. I am so inspired by you. And I know that Moomsie is so, so, so very proud of you. And though she's not here in the physical flesh, she is watching over you. And I know that she guides your steps. And as you always tell us, I'm sure she's saying to you, Dionnie, walk good, right? So how do people, and obviously this conversation is going to keep going in a different we're going to do this in a different space too, because I love talking to you and about your story. But if people wanted to get in contact with you and connect with you, how can they do that?
All right. So if you are interested in working with me in building, scaling, or growing, relaunching your practice, just DM me on any social media platform. Just DM me Academy, one word. Once you say Academy, I know I know what you're interested in. Any platform, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, it's Dionnie Wynter Pfunde. DM me Academy. For individuals that want to work with us on the law practice side, you just go to winterimmigration.com. And everything I do is technology. You can book your own time. That's convenient for you if you want to chat with us.
Yeah. And just so you know, because her name is spelled a little differently, it's Dionnie, Dionnie, Winter, Wynter, and Pfunde, Pfunde. She is not regular.
No, I am the coldest winter ever.
See, I told y'all. Well, Dionnie, thank you so much for joining me on the Ladies Who Leverage podcast. I have so enjoyed this conversation. And I know that, I always tell you all that, your life is a masterclass for other people. And I think so many women who are listening today will have taken away some great nuggets and just the the importance of believing in yourself and always moving forward. So thank you again for being here today, and make sure that you catch us on the next episode of Ladies Who Leverage Podcast. Thanks for joining us. This podcast is brought to you by Lady Lawyer Media. If you're a badass woman who's ready to take action to live life unapologetically AF, then you need to join our global community on Facebook, Ladies Who Leverage. And remember to subscribe to our podcast. And until next time, let's collabosource, strategize, and monetize.